Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
A roller coaster of emotion ends rather bitterly. Welcome to Game Over Calgary. I'm Peter Klein. I'll introduce our guest in a second, but I just need we need deep cleansing breaths, just because that was, oh my God. But anyway, before we get into all of that action, you can get into the action and make your bet with Sports Interaction. Every hit, every shot, every goal. Could have used maybe at least one or two more from the Flames tonight. From all your favorite teams and players, with competitive odds, the best in live in play, and more ways than ever to get into the game. Like Minute Madness, our exclusive game with so many opportunities to win by the minute, which, by the way, is one of the best, anything that I've seen in sports, the sports gambling space. Minute Madness might be the best of it. Download the app in Ontario, use the QR code you see at the bottom of the screen, or head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN to get started. 19 years and older, please play responsibly. Sports gambling can be a very difficult thing for a lot of people to deal with. If that is you, there are links in the show notes. Very pleased to be joined today by Paige Stewart. Paige, we gave you one hell of a hockey game to talk about. How are you today?
I mean, I was good before that game just ended. I really wanted to come with positive news, but here we are. We do cover the Flames, so you know how that is. How are you doing?
Doing okay. I had two shows planned. I had the oh my God, they just lost to the Canucks, and I had the they don't ask how, they ask how many show prepared, just in case that shootout went a little bit differently. But instead, we're going to be doing the oh my God, they just lost to the Canucks portion of this. And I'm so freaking frustrated with this team, because if they just did what they did, overtime was bananas. But if they just did what they did in the third period throughout the whole game, then we're having a much different conversation, and I'm not getting very happy messages from the Game Over Winnipeg people tonight. I don't get why that third period couldn't have happened in the first two.
I don't understand. They all know where they're at in the season. They know what's on the line. They know how deep they are in the season, what they need to be doing, and yet there is a burning trash fire that just happened towards the end there. It's so frustrating. It's I swear this team, every time they get a goal in the first period against them, even if it's 1 goal, 3 goals, whatever it is, they just completely shut down and they can't do anything until it's oh crap, we have 5 minutes left. Maybe we should score a goal or something. It's just absolutely terrible. And I think that's one of the hardest things about being a Flames fan is we don't know what Flames team we're going to get. We don't know if they're going to get, the best in the league type of play, or we're going to get whatever that was towards the end.
Whatever that was is a great way of summing it up. And admittedly, the last couple of guests I've had were with you and with Tony Ferrari. I booked you guys a bit in advance. As much as it may not seem it, I do plan a little bit for these things. But I plan in advance for prospects talk. It seems like the season is done. We'll talk some draft. We'll bring Paige on. We'll talk about the Wranglers. Excellent stuff with Flames Nation. This will be great. And then they got in the playoff hunt. And so there was that little bit of hope. And now it's just all been taken away. But I think you nailed it right on the head. They have all of the energy of an 18-year-old kid in college who realized they have a 4,500 word essay due in 15 minutes. And it's just oh shit. That is how they've approached this entire season. It's every game like that. It's it's everything with this team that is like that, where it's the season, it's games, it's periods, it's all of it, where it's just all seems to come down to the very last moment.
Yeah, and that's the perfect way to put it, because it's it's so frustrating to watch, and you can just see when they just dial it up a notch, and you're okay, yeah, you're supposed to be playing like this, and it's just they get lulled to sleep by teams they shouldn't be. I don't know, not that we want to go back and talk about the Blackhawks game, but seriously, guys, you got to know who you're playing. You have to get kind of that mentality of where you are and where they are. And playing down to the same level as your opponents isn't going to get them where they need to be, which was, in a playoff spot. But, they made it really, really hard on themselves. And I mean, it's still not 100% over, but we're getting pretty darn close now.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really expect Winnipeg to lose the rest of their games. So that's where we're at. So I don't know. It's so frustrating being a Flames fan sometimes, because it seems like the end of every game, regardless of what happened, it's like the whole fan base needs just like a well-being check. It's like,
Right.
are we stressed? Are we okay? Did we breathe the whole last 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Are we happy? Do we want to fire the whole coaching staff? Do we need to bring people up, send people down, sit people? It's just an absolute mess. And I don't really know if there's any other team in the league that really goes through like the huge range of emotions that we've gone through this year as kind of Flames fans. It blows my mind.
Yeah. Also for all the like meditation apps and yoga studios in Calgary, like sponsorship opportunity here, because we all need it after this whole season. Like I said, just deep cleansing breaths, trying to find that zen. So the situation now for the Flames, it's not over, but it feels over. There was a lot of the Vince Carter slam dunk contest, like it's over tonight. That's what it feels like. The Flames are a point out. They have 2 games left. Winnipeg has 3 left. That's not great for the math. And I would love to tell you, like, oh yeah, the Flames should win their last 2. They also should have won tonight. And like you said, like we don't necessarily want to go over the whole thing, but just in the last month, they have lost to the Blackhawks. They have lost to they got the hell beat out of them by the Kings. They lost in overtime to Arizona, and they lost to Anaheim. That's just in the last month of like just beat teams you're supposed to beat. And we are not having this conversation right now about like the season kind of feeling over, but it does kind of feel over. And I got a chance to chat with a number of people in Calgary media over the last week. And you talk about like, okay, what's to blame for this? And it's kind of everything. Like, I don't want to do like the whole season end thing tonight, although it feels like the season ended tonight. But I guess for you, Paige, is there like kind of one thing that's sticking out as like when we're dishing out the entire blame pie, like who gets the biggest slice of the blame pie?
I hate to say it because he's been catching a lot of heat this year, but at this point, I blame Huberdeau. Like, not just because of that turnover in this game, but it's just the trait. Like, I hate beating the dead horse about losing Kachuk and Johnny and everything last season, but we were really expecting the same level of play or very similar out of Huberdeau as we had with those guys. And I always have that thought when I'm watching the third period and we're down in a game or whatever it is these are these big clutch moments that we need big clutch players to come in and win the game for us. And I just really haven't had that confidence this year. Like, there's been very streaky players. There's guys that aren't playing to the level that they're supposed to be. And then someone that was near the top of the league of scoring last year, just coming in and just kind of having a sinking kind of season where he's not really doing too much. It's like, I know his name gets tossed around a lot, but it's like he came in with this expectation. He had a role to play. He's here on a big contract. We needed him to be that guy for us, and we just don't have that. So it sucks because you look at our team and it's like you do have guys that could be kind of all-star caliber, but I don't really believe that we really have like a full standout all-star guy at the moment, which is too bad because those are the people that you need. You need the guys that are going to like go and win the game winner, do something in overtime. Like, props to them. It was a great overtime period to watch. I wish, like they were saying on the broadcast, like, we need the 10-minute overtimes. I'm like, I would have watched 10 minutes of that. Absolutely. Hands down. Yeah. And I do like, I know Markstrom's been getting some heat as well. And that's understandable. He also is in a large role, but it's just like, it doesn't matter if he's making 40 saves or 5 saves. Like, at the end of the day, you still have to do the scoring side of it as well. And I just really think this team's really had a hard time getting both to line up on the same night. Either they're going to score goals and not make saves, or they're going to make saves and not score goals. It's so frustrating.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes they don't do either and they lose 8-2 to the Kings. But no, like, you're right. Like, I am with you. And I've kind of been a little bit easier on Huberdeau this year, and I've given most of the blame pie, to be perfectly honest, to Daryl Sutter. But at this point, it's game 80. Like, I don't care what the coach is doing and all of those, well, to a certain extent, I guess. But like, there's no excuse for that. Like the pass that Miller tips to send over to Pettersson to set up the 2-0 goal, like, that's a pass that barely should happen in September, let alone April, at game 80 with your season on the line. Like, you cannot have those things happen. And it's something we brought up a few times on this show this year. When things are going badly, I have yet, aside from a couple of glimpses from Kadri and a couple of times from Tyler Toffoli, who's been excellent, by the way, but like there hasn't been the guy who's just like, you know what, hop on the shoulders, baby, let's go. And I wasn't the biggest Gaudreau fan, but there were at least nights where he just took over. He was just like, you know what, we're not losing tonight. I haven't seen that from anyone this year. There are players who have been playing well and like varying degrees of that, but there has the one thing this team has missed, whether it's Gaudreau, Kachuk, even Monahan had a couple of those games before his legs fell off. That this is a team that really is lacking that, like, hey, we're not losing tonight, let's go. And I feel like that's really missing with this group.
100%. And like, I mean, to put a whole umbrella over it, I guess it's like this, you kind of look back to the leadership as well. It's like, is that maybe the reason why there isn't a captain on this team? Why have we gone 2 seasons without a captain? Like, is it really like, I am so curious as to what's going on in that dressing room. Like, I know it's not really our business from the outside or whatever, but you just like, you hear things, you hear like kind of the energy around the room. Obviously, people make comments with the media, you know, agents tweet out stuff, whatever it is. Things come out and you got to wonder, like, there's something so disjointed about that locker room right now that nothing can really pull them up and bring them together. Like, I have a sports background as well. I've played for some really good coaches and some really bad coaches. And if you have the right kind of personality of a team, it doesn't really matter who is making the lineup, you know? So if there really was someone that had that type of veteran leadership, or even if it's like a young guy that has a good background that's kind of gone the whole way in a different level, they would have kind of that edge that would help them lift them through this type of, you know, scenario. But I don't know what it is, but the Flames don't seem to have it. And it's so incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna say that a million times tonight. So if you want to
Yeah.
put that on the tally for how frustrated I am.
Yeah. It's so incredibly frustrating. The story of the 2022-2023 Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
That's the title of the DVD that they'll send out at the end of the year if they still
In
they
this
don't do
essay, I will ...
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's the chat GPT prompt now for this thing. But before we get to the chat for the first time, you mentioned agents tweeting things out. And the one thing when Alan Walsh tweeted that out, people were saying, oh, I don't pay attention to social media. Oh, I blah, 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 blah. No one was saying, oh, no, everything's great. You know, like there was not one person who denied what was said in the tweet. There was just, maybe he shouldn't have said it. Maybe I don't pay attention to Twitter. There was never a, oh, no, things are great. Everything is fine here. And I wish we had, like, whether it's the Amazon All Access or whatever it's called, or like some kind of, like, we're big into F1 Drive to Survive. I just want some kind of cameras back there. Again, it's none of my business, but I want to see it, because there's no way you can tell me what we saw tonight is the product of a cohesive kumbaya locker room.
Absolutely not.
No. Just a
Like,
disaster.
you don't know if it's who's against who, like what, like you don't know if they're blowing up at each other after games like this, or I don't know if you looked at their faces after, like, the horn sounded, like they all just looked completely gutted. But it's also like there was no one that really had that drive to, like you said, kind of pull up the bootstraps, let's get going, I'm going to win this game whether I do it myself or the rest of the guys are behind me. It's tough to watch, and I don't know if we'll ever know really what's going on behind the scenes. Sometimes those guys will go on their own type of podcast, or like they catch them in an interview somewhere and you kind of can start putting the pieces together. But with this team, like, I don't know if even if we get into the off season, if they really have any kind of insight as to what's been going on this season.
Right. Let's get into the chat for the first time tonight. Brian Robertson saying, if we can beat the Preds and Winnipeg's last few games crash and burn, there's still a chance, albeit slim. I would not necessarily take that overly optimistic look, but again, like you said, slim. Just for the record, the last games for Winnipeg are against San Jose, Minnesota, and Colorado. So 2 of those teams have something to play for, and then one of them's San Jose. But so, like, there's at least something there, at least, but I'm not overly optimistic. Am I, like, I guess I didn't, like, 100% ask your opinion on that, so sorry about that. But, like, it is, for lack of a better way to put this, is there still hope, or does it feel to you as over as it, I think, very clearly feels to me?
I hate to be this person, and I've been this person for a few weeks to a month now. Just the way that this team's been playing, I really didn't think they were going to make it in.
Mhm.
And I thought I'm shocked that they made it this close. I've been saying for, whenever anyone asks the question, be like, no, they won't make the playoffs. But there's also a little bit of an individual perspective on that, where I'm kind of like, I kind of don't want them to make the playoffs because I want Dewar and Pelche back for the Wranglers, because the Wranglers have a chance of winning this year. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I just see it, if we did find a way, if all the stars aligned and we made the playoffs, that we're going to embarrass ourselves again. We're going to get knocked out in the first round, and it's just going to be a waste of time. Like last year, it felt like we had the pieces to really make it far in the playoffs. And this
Mhm.
year, it's like, if we squeeze in, we're still not going to do very well. So I kind of just accepted the fact. I'm like, I'm not getting let down by the Flames again this year. And I'm just going to expect they don't make it until if and when they do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still haven't really, like, I've changed my mind a little bit to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, they're actually kind of putting up a little bit of a fight. And for parts of that game, for parts of the third period, after they scored, they tied it up, I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe they might make it happen here. But it's just that edge, that next level that like good teams have, and the cohesiveness they just don't have. So I really don't think they will.
Yeah.
And that's not a very that's not the ideal mindset there, but that's just really what my gut feeling has been with this team, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, look, if you're looking for blind optimism, there are places you can find that, but it's not going to be here. Like this is not like I don't know at this point. I don't know what you have to hang your hat on. Like you said that they had a team to go far in the playoffs last year. This year going far would be 5 games. Like if they got into the playoffs and didn't get swept, be like, you know what, better than I thought. But no, I'm with you. Like just get Pelche and anyone else back to the Wranglers, so that a team that actually has a chance at doing something can get them. And to a point you brought up earlier, MGD 8862, which I'm sure is their real name. Flames bench looked so defeated after that loss. Hope the heart will be in it for the next game. That's the thing too. Like I don't know how you get, because they play again Monday and Wednesday. I don't know how you go from, oh yeah, debilitating loss that maybe ended our season, to, all right, well, let's go out and get them. Like that it just, all of it feel, and maybe again, it's just the soul crushing nature of it for me, but all of it just feels like that would be kind of the last straw. Like I don't know if there is maybe it is playing a Pelche. Maybe it is Coronado getting his first career NHL game, just to give them that bit of spark, that bit of life, to try to get them going for the last couple of games.
Yeah, seriously, like I hate to admit it, but like a week ago, I forgot Coronado was still here. Like
Right.
obviously we know everyone made a big deal about him coming up and everything, but we haven't seen him. And like I've watched a lot of Pelche this year, and I know someone like Pelche can go and kind of bring up some energy. He brings that kind of Toffoli type of energy to the game, where it's like it's a never quit. If everyone else on the team isn't going to be skating their ass off, he's going to be skating his ass off. He might be like, it might not be the most graceful way of doing it, but he's going to bring a little bit more when the rest of the guys are just kind of accepting the fact that they've lost. And I mean, I'm actually going to the game on Monday, and I'm a little concerned. I'm like, I don't know what to expect at this point. And I think it really comes down to how they start. Obviously they didn't start very good tonight. And if they don't start very good against Nashville, they might just completely accept the fact their season's over and just, mail it in and be like, okay, well, we just got to get through these last couple games, and then, it's golfing season.
Yeah. That's another part of the frustration for me. And now we're just venting. But the part of it is like, just think about the circumstances surrounding tonight. You are playing a team that I'm old enough to remember when that was a rivalry. It hasn't been for a while because they can never stay relevant at the same time. And I think part of that is a decade of whatever's going on out west. But like this is, I would still say, somewhat of a rivalry between these two teams. Your season is literally on the line. The team that you are chasing just won after you beat them to pull even with them. And that's the effort you put out. And you can't blame it on kids or anything like that, because Dewar is the only kid in there. The lineup that is out there is all the old dudes who were supposed to be the ones who are coming up at this time of year, right? Like it's the veterans, it's the Luciches, it's like you said, Huberdeau, Kadri. If he could show up in the calendar year 2023, that would be phenomenal. Like it's all of these veteran guys who were supposed to be the difference makers to step up in this exact situation that aren't doing it, and you're missing the spark from Pelches. And I'm assuming Coronado would provide something like that as well. But like you're expecting the spark from the young kids when it's supposed to be the old vets who were the ones this time of year really dragging you into this hunt.
Yeah, you would think those are the guys that are like, like you got to feel for someone like Michael Backlund. He's played his whole career here. And yeah, they've had their good runs and their bad runs and everything like that. But I don't put all the blame on him either, but those types of guys be like, yeah, like I don't know how long my career is going to be and I want to win with this team. If you have an opportunity that you're that close to win with this team, like you never know what's going to happen next season. You don't know if you're going to get a career-ending injury. Like that's like the scariest part about being in sports. You don't really know how much time you have left in your career. And when you have an opportunity to kind of make something with it and possibly kind of go that way with the team that you're on, why not take the most of it? Like I know these guys make a lot of money, but either way, like paycheck or not, you still want to raise the cup at the end of the day. So
Right.
I just really don't know what's got them so defeated. And I know that, bringing the Brett Sutter, thinking Wranglers, my bad, the Daryl Sutter conversation into it. Yeah, if we think the coaching situation is as bad as it is, or not as bad as it is, wherever that lands on the spectrum, you're still an adult. Like you're not a 12-year-old guy playing little league or anything like that. You still can think for yourself. You're still in control of the way you play. Yeah, there might be someone telling you where your positioning needs to be and who you're going to be on a line with or anything, but at the end of the day, you're in control of your own destiny. And that's kind of where the Flames have been at in this kind of last push here. But like the same point we keep hammering home, it's like, okay, well, who wants it? Because I don't see very many guys that do.
Yeah, like I've worked for places where I didn't enjoy what I was doing, or who I was working for more specifically, and like bitched about it a lot. But then once it got time to actually work, and again, I'm not comparing talking into a microphone to going out and playing professional sports, but it's like you go out and you do your job and then bitch about it after. It's the way of the future. Like you have a job to do and you're getting paid rather handsomely to do it. And if you are quitting on the coach, which is something we've heard a lot in this market, but we've heard that specifically this year, like you're not just quitting on the coach, you are quitting on your teammates, and you're quitting on a fan base that is so desperate for anything to go right with this team basically since 2004, which if it doesn't happen this year, the next time the playoffs roll around is going to be 20 years since that whole thing happened. So I like it's been a bit of a rough go for Flames fans, but with the exception of a series win last year that wasn't overly satisfying because a 23-year-old goalie almost made everyone pull their hair out. But I am so, and there'll be more time for these conversations later, but I am so fascinated at what this offseason holds if this season goes the way we think it will. Because I am of the belief that they won't let Daryl Sutter go. I'm of the belief that they should, but I don't think there'd be anything that would surprise me if this team was just like, you know what, one bad year, 45 1-goal losses or whatever it's going to end up being. We think we are X, Y, and Z away, so we're going to go for it. I could see them do that. I could see them fire everyone and trade everyone and go from there. I could see them just standing pat. Like there's very little for me that would be surprising this offseason. Understanding that there's still a couple of games left. How, as we sit right now, how would you see a Flames offseason going?
I don't know. I feel like I always have higher hopes for the off season than what actually happened. And like, to be fair, last summer was an interesting one, probably one of the most interesting ones we've seen in recent years. But I don't know. I don't really think that Tree Living and Sutter are gone. But I'm of the same belief that I wouldn't really be surprised if there was some kind of leadership changes up there as well. I think they probably need to be swapping out a good chunk of their lineup. Maybe not core guys or anything. And you do have a lot of kind of free agents and people still under contracts. So there's a lot of things behind the scenes that go on with that. But I really don't want to go through an off season where we're like, well, we're almost there. So let's just trade away one guy that didn't really do anything and pick up another guy that probably won't really do anything. So I really want to set them up in a way that's going to, give them that recipes for success and just bring in some sort of edge. Like I know there has been a lot of conversations about goaltending as well. And there's a lot of people, it's a huge debate of if Dustin Wolf's going to be ready next season, or is he not? So if you're kind of planning for starting to graduate some of those AHL guys into the lineup, where does that fit in with the guys you have right now and the guys that you could be getting out from the market, you know?
Yeah.
So I really don't have a prediction that I feel strongly about. I'm very curious to see what happens. Again, to my Wrangler mentality, I would like some of those guys to get a shot if they can, and someone like Pelche maybe makes the lineup out of camp. That would be great to see. But at the end of the day, it's I feel like I'm in a fever dream where every summer goes by and it's like we have the same guys and then two guys that you're like, oh, whose number is that when you're watching preseason games, and then they get traded halfway through the season and they don't really do anything and they score a couple goals, but it just kind of comes and goes and it doesn't really matter. Like I can't really name every single player that we've had from the last couple of years that's come in for half a season or come in for a season and been like a fourth liner that's in and out of the lineup and then just leaves. We'll go and play them. It's like, oh, I remember when he was a Flame briefly. So I think there's something in the system that's not working, obviously. And hopefully they can do some more big moves over the summer, kind of like they did last summer. Cause it's like, hey, we brought in these big guys. We thought something was going to happen. We thought we brought in guys with, that have won Stanley Cups that can come in and make a big difference. And I mean, if you know what it takes to get that far, why aren't you bringing that into the dressing room right now?
Right. I don't know what you're talking about. Day one free agent signing Kevin Rooney has been very impactful for this team. This season, I feel like you're way out of base there.
Oh, you mean active Calgary Wrangler Kevin Rooney, that one?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Look, when you can sign someone who makes an impact on your AHL team on day one of free agency, you have to jump at that. I do want to talk to you about the Wranglers. As obviously it's a much more enjoyable subject to talk about for a little bit. There's a couple of names that I think a lot of Flames fans are very intrigued by, because we've seen a few graduations this year to the NHL level with varying results, we'll say. But the first one that I'm fascinated with is Connor Zary, and he was one who I think a lot of Flames fans in the early part of the season were like, call him up. And Mike Gould was on with Audie and saying like, hey, that this is a guy who is like, he has more responsibility now than he's ever had before. And so that's why I kind of backed off on that. You follow this team, you cover this team on a night in, night out basis. What have you seen from Connor Zary? And have you seen someone who you think is ready to make that NHL jump next season?
I think next season I could see it. I also understand why he didn't this season. He can be really streaky, I find. He's on a very good line. He's on the second line for the Wranglers, and there's sometimes he goes on like long point streaks for 5 to 7 games or so. I'd say its first half of the season has been better than his last half, but I mean, he scored tonight, so I'm not bashing him by any means. He does have kind of a little bit of leadership in him, and he's not, I wouldn't say he's a veteran on the team because he's only in his second season, but I think he's really, what needs to happen in his career to make that next jump is happening. He's playing on a good team. He's playing with guys that have good experience. He sees the puck well. He has a really good shot when he gets the opportunity. I would have really liked to see him, Phillips, and Pelche click better at the start of the season. I thought that was going to be the lights out line. Like that would have been insane to see all season. It only lasted a few games before he kind of switched to move down with Cole Schwint and Emilio Pettersson. It's too bad because he's on a line with two other guys that are very inconsistent. So they're really good when they're really good, but they're okay. And they'll still help the team when they're not scoring. So I think he's still trying to figure out his game, and he's been flip-flopped between the wing and center. So I think he needs to establish more what his professional role is going to be, whether that's on the wing or that's centering a line. And once he does that, just completely dialing in on that and seeing where the opportunities come with the Flames. So I would like to see him. I can see why he didn't, because I think Pelche had that jump. And to be honest with Dewar, I wasn't really expecting him to get called up and do what he did. And he did. Right. So hats off to him. But I think Zary's right there, and we could see him in a Flames jersey in the near future, in my opinion.
I think a lot of people would be very excited about that. Before we get to the other name, I've been a very bad host so far. The chat has been blowing up so far. You guys have been great. Like this video, share it out there. Misery loves company, right? So let's get this chat going, as we have a lot to talk about with this Flames team and with Paige about the just whatever again that was tonight with the Flames losing to the Canucks. So like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. If you miss any of this, the video is always up on YouTube. That's how it works. Or you can subscribe to the podcast and rate, review, and subscribe wherever you can on there. Just search for Game Over NHL. The other name that I think a lot of Flames fans are excited about from a Wrangler standpoint would be between the pipes with Dustin Wolf, who apparently will never lose again in the American Hockey League and barely allow any goals in the process. Stats wise, it's looked incredible. From ye old eye test, how has Dustin Wolf looked? Has it been as good as it seems from those of us kind of looking at it from 300 feet away?
Absolutely, like 100%. I cannot advocate more for that. Hands down, hands down. He is as good as he looks. He is as good as the numbers say, and it looks fake. You see where he lands in the win column and shutouts and goals against and save percentage, and you're like, oh yeah, like that's, they missed a few games or something or whatever. But no, it's really as good as it looks. And I feel bad for the guy a little bit because he didn't really have the best showing like in the camp and in the preseason. So he didn't really get as much opportunity as maybe he should have. There is that kind of goalie mentality, and they need to build up kind of that mental game. I think he's still working on that, but he is hands down the most humble guy. The last two seasons I've been covering him, he'd had a few games in the bubble weird season that we had here in Calgary when the Stockton Heat came up to Calgary. He will be the last person to say he played a good game. He can stop 50 shots and shut out his opponent. He's still going to say, yeah, the team helped us win tonight. It wasn't me. I just had good guys skating in front of me. And I think if and most likely when he makes that jump up to the Flames, I'm so excited to see how that path goes. And I think what everyone is so worried about is burning him early. We've seen so many situations where young goalies have come up before they're ready and it just completely tears them apart. And then you just kind of disappear into the abyss of other goalies that tried to make that jump. I don't want to see that happen to Dustin Wolf, and I don't think a lot of people want to see that. But watching him play for the Wranglers and watching him make those huge saves, it's AHL, but he's playing against guys that go up to the NHL. He's playing with guys that are right there. It's not that he's getting easy games by any means. I'm not expecting his record to be the same if and when he's in the NHL, but just his skill and what he does and his lateral movement and the way he is and protects the net, even with not him being the biggest goaltender, is just absolutely exceptional. I would go to a Wranglers game just to watch Dustin Wolf. If I wasn't too familiar with the team, he is worth the price of admission. Not to be cliche and say one of those hockey terms, but I fully stand by that.
It feels like we're kind of set up for Markstrom and Wolf next year, right? And I know a lot of people would rather half of that not happen and they ship Markstrom out after the year that he's had this season. I still think there's something there. That makes Vladar the odd man out, but it just feels like if you could bring Wolf into a situation where he's not necessarily the season doesn't hinge on him and he can kind of work through, like you said, that new to the NHL, just get your feet wet and figure this out. Let Markstrom take some of the high leverage games. You can play against Arizona or whoever, and just kind of ease your way that way. I just feel like he has kind of past that level, he can't, there's nothing else he can do at the American Hockey League where it's okay, yeah, he needs to do X, Y, and Z. He's done it all there, right?
Oh, 100%. You can't, even if the Wranglers do go on to win a Calder Cup this year, if they do or they don't, you just have to look at his stats the last couple of years and just the way he performs game to game. He has set himself so far apart from all the other goaltenders in that league. It's a no-brainer. I know there's different opportunities where other teams need kind of emergency backup that we haven't really had that scenario come up this year or anything like that, or there's call-ups or injuries or whatever it is. And that situation brings kind of some opportunity for players like that to kind of test the waters in the NHL. But for him, it's like you said, he's done everything he can do. How many years in a row does he need to be goaltender of the year for you to say, hey, maybe he could help us out?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it's the time is now. A couple more from the chat. Amon saying the Wranglers are the best ticket in Calgary, and that's not even an exaggeration. I would probably agree with that. It's them or the Roughnecks right now. Because that is, if you have them into a Roughnecks game, you need to correct that like yesterday. The Flames gave Ladar a 2-year, $2.2 million extension earlier this year, so probably going with the same goalies next year. People get traded; it can happen. I don't think they're going to say, hey, this goalie who could be a franchise goalie in the future is ready, but God damn it, we got Dan Vladar. I think that they'll be able to make that one make sense. A couple other ones here. James asking, who is the host? I'm Peter. That's Paige. Unless you don't think I'm doing very well, in which case my name's Audie. Wise Kyle says, why talk about a player who won't help you this year? Y'all still have a shot to make the playoffs. Did y'all see that game tonight? Because I don't think these all do. But that is why we are talking about this, because it just the whole thing again to kind of summarize where we feel, and we should quite frankly, we should let Robert get to bed, who is officially hosting this chat tonight because technology is not my friend. So to summarize, everything feels bad right now around the Calgary Flames. I do want just a quick word on how insane that overtime was. That was the best hockey I've seen all year. And I know like people are bringing up like the 10-minute overtime. Someone in the chat mentioned 10-minute overtime. I was watching that thinking, could we do 3-on-3 at the Olympics? Like, could like they like all these other sports have all these different variations of all, you get like 45 swimming medals, and there's 115 different like racing, running things that you can do. We could have a like whoever doesn't make it for the standard 5-on-5 hockey at the Olympics, just have them come in as a 3-on-3 team. Like that's where I was at, is I'm justifying altering the Olympics with how good that 3-on-3 was tonight.
Oh, I love it. It just like is absolutely insane. And when you're so invested in the team, I don't know about you, but my like whole body gets into it. Like I get so stiff and so stressed, and I'm so dialed into it. I'm like, okay, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? And then it's like every time a whistle sounds, I'm like, okay, I can breathe now.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. And I swear to God, I was getting war flashbacks when Pettersson was coming in, and I was like, oh my God, he's gonna score again. He's gonna score again. He's gonna score again. And he didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. We're okay. And I have a lot of confidence in the Flames, and they make it to shootouts for the most part. But I know we're talking about overtime, but not impressed with the shootout at all.
No.
That was dog shit, for lack of a better term.
No, that was a perfect term.
But overtime though, like it's just exactly what we needed through 60 minutes that we got in 5 minutes.
Yes. Yeah, like it was just the back and the forth and everything. And it's not just back and forth and it's a 3-on-2 or whatever. It's 2-on-1s or it's a Beauvillier breakaway. And yeah, Pettersson, like if not to take a shot at a team that just beat the Flames, if the Canucks were any kind of relevant over the last few years, Pettersson's talked about as one of the best players in the league. That dude is so fucking good at the sport of hockey. And it just doesn't get talked about enough, because why would you with the Canucks? But I mean, you would tonight because they beat the Calgary Flames in a shootout, thus potentially killing all hopes of the Calgary Flames making it to the postseason this year. Paige, I could do this all day. This has been a whole lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find your work?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I write for Flames Nation, so you can find my work on there. It's mostly Wranglers stuff if you're kind of interested in what's going on with them. And if the Flames really are done, yeah, I'll have more content for you if you need hockey content. You can also find me on Twitter. My handle is Flames_update, or you can look up Paige Stewart, Siewert, and that will be my Twitter. So those would be the best two places to find me.
Yeah, this was great. I feel bad now that we brought you on so late in the season. I'd say, oh yeah, we'll definitely have you back on again. There's 2 games left, so it probably won't work out. But this was a blast. Thank you so much for coming on. My name is Peter Klein. You can find me on social media, interrupting people like I just interrupted Paige, at Twitter and Instagram at Primetime Klein. I'm also very irregularly on Twitch at twitch.tv/PrimetimePK. But yes, Paige, last word to you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. And, there's always next year. I'll still be doing hockey things next year. So maybe it'll be a different conversation the next time we do this.
Yes, here's hoping, because I don't know if I can do, I'm gray enough. I don't know if I can do 82 games again of all of this next season. Hopefully something gets adjusted. Thank you to all of you in the chat. It was lively as always. I couldn't get to everyone, but you guys are so great, and it makes doing these shows so much more fun when everyone is alive in the chat. So thank you to you. Remember, like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel. We are back on Monday as the death march towards 82 closes for the Flames this week. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.